So the question is, which is better, Bitcoin or stocks? So to be honest, they're completely different. Although I must say, at the moment, they kind of follow the same trends. They both go up at the same time. Both seem to go down at the same time. In some ways, there's not much difference trading Bitcoin or some types of stocks, especially tech stocks. That they're pretty highly correlated. But which is better? That there is no universal truth that says one is better than the other. People will have different opinions. I think the best way of describing it is that it depends really on your use case, your own circumstances, which might be better for you, which might better suit you. So stocks have been around for a long time, possibly over 100 years. I'm not completely sure, but yeah, of course they have, because they were definitely around in the crash of 1929, and that's approaching 100 years, and they've been around long before that. So yeah, they've been around for several hundred years, stocks, representing obviously a share of the capital of a company, and you're usually due a share of the earnings that are distributed as what are known as dividends. And as the company grows, then your share also grows in value. So Bitcoin is much newer. It's decentralized. It's hardest form of money that's ever been invented. It's one of many cryptos. It's the OG, the original crypto, the daddy. There are other cryptos, but none of them work the way Bitcoin does. Bitcoin is originally supposed to be a transactional coin to buy and sell products or services, but in the end it's become a store of wealth, real hard money, like gold, very similar to gold. So which is better? Let me make an assumption here. Let me make the assumption that you're buying either Bitcoin or stocks because you want capital gains. You're investing. You're investing for the long term. You might not be. You might be trading. You can do that too, but most people will be investors. Now, to be honest, in terms of return, they're pretty similar. So, roughly, currently, around 30% per year return on both Bitcoin and I think on stocks also. But that's at this particular moment in time. Bitcoin has got increasing adoption. It will become less volatile over time. It won't give you as good returns eventually if you think forward 10, 20, 30 years and beyond that. Stocks are a bit different. They don't have to go through this maturation process. You do, of course, have different companies at different stages of their own journey, but if we assume for the moment we're just talking about everyday stocks, then we're talking about pretty big cap stocks that you would see in an index like S&P 500 or Dow Jones Industrial Average. So we're talking about big stocks, and companies do come and go, and some of them stay longer and grow larger, but ultimately the stock market doesn't undergo this structural change every 20 years or whatever in the same way that Bitcoin will actually change, just because it's going to get more and more adopted. So they're different in that sense, but currently they both make pretty much the same gains, if that's your primary interest. Now look, stocks, if you own them, although you can potentially lose all your money, I do believe that there is some protection in your brokerage account that most governments will give you. So let's say you own some stocks, or you have some money in your brokerage account, and then your broker goes bankrupt. You do have some recourse. Whereas with Bitcoin and with crypto in general, I don't believe the government gives any guarantees if your exchange is, for example, hacked and the Bitcoin is stolen. Now I do expect that to change in future, but because it's such a young market, it is missing a lot of consumer protections, and most people don't have a problem with that because it's also a little bit Wild West crypto. It's almost like there's an implicit statement from government that says, well, we won't protect you as much, but at the same time we're not going to over-regulate you. Like, if you want regulations to protect you, then we'll will regulate the hell out of it, and to the extent that you probably don't want, that you'll feel held back by it. You're not as free. So I do feel like there's a little bit of that going on with crypto in general, including Bitcoin. So that may change in future, and yeah, stocks are just way more established. Stocks can go into a pension fund and things like that. Bitcoin in its native format cannot. However, there are now ETFs. There's a Bitcoin ETF in the US. There's an Ethereum ETF, I think. And I don't think there are any others, but there are other ones that are penciled in, such as XRP, Solana, I think Cardano. So the blue chips of the crypto world, as they get more and more legitimized, there will be more and more ETFs available. But Bitcoin already has one, so it can actually be put in a pension fund, albeit not directly, but via the ETF. So yeah, in that sense, it's like kind of like having a tech stock in your portfolio, a big, large market cap tech stock. Over time, there look like fewer and fewer differences between Bitcoin and stocks. But of course, eventually Bitcoin will behave more like gold. It will be digital gold, and it won't be chopping up and down or whipsawing and going all over the place in the way that it can do now. It's arguably currently, this is another point I want to make, arguably, although it does behave more or less like stocks, I think it's pretty safe to say that it is more volatile than stocks. You will get days in Bitcoin where it'll just go up 10-15% in a day, and it might even come down the same amount in the same day. And that doesn't really happen in stocks unless it's an exceptional day. Whereas I would say in Bitcoin, it's not that exceptional. So also, the occasional drawdown. I think the stock market has a 10% drawdown at least once a year. I'm pretty sure in Bitcoin that more than once a year you'll get an even bigger drawdown than that, like 20% down or something. So, but on the whole, they do behave pretty similarly. When there's a crash in the market, like a major event, they also both tend to crash by kind of similar amount, 50 to 75%. So they're really not that different. But I think if you were wondering which of the two, you have access to both. There is something about Bitcoin that just makes it more accessible to just open an account at an exchange and start buying it. One thing you can do with Bitcoin that you can't do with stocks is, because it's a store of wealth, you could take it out of your exchange and you can self-custody it. Now, that's something that you just cannot do with stocks at all. Well, I don't think so. I mean, perhaps it was possible once upon a time to get a share certificate and keep that at home, and you can just turn up to a new broker and hand over the certificate and they'll deposit it in your account. But I feel like those days must be long gone, if they even still count at all. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can absolutely do that. In fact, that's part of the idea behind it, is that you should really not keep your money on an exchange in case the exchange gets hacked or something similar. That you should take it out of the exchange and self-custody it. And by doing that, you have full control over your coins. Whereas if you hold stock in a broker account, theoretically, and it does happen sometimes, your account can just be frozen. Ostensibly for something like KYC or AML, anti-money laundering or something, but basically they don't have to justify it, right? If they want to just freeze it, they can freeze it immediately and ask questions later. So one great advantage about Bitcoin, and really by design, is that you can self-custody it. No one has control over your funds except you. Simple as that. So yeah, I hope this gives you an idea of the differences between Bitcoin and stocks. Which is better? I don't really believe in which is better. In fact, if you can have both, then I would go ahead and do that. Obviously, if you have access only to one, then that's what you're left with. I think you can at least be happy then that the kind of trading action that you'll get if you have only one will be pretty similar to if you had owned both anyway. But if you can own both, then I think it's kind of useful. You'll have access to Bitcoin, the hardest form of wealth, and then with stocks you can invest in the companies and hopefully good growth and getting solid returns. So I hope you found this interesting. Let me know what you thought, and please subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.